我先按了，然后等下你再帮我看一下这个描述有没有在跑字。对。
然后看一下这个，
一样都没问题做。真的？是谁？
中兴大学。
啊，中兴大学，应该不知道吧？你的有很多也是。你喜欢教？
之前去这边实习。
真的？
我在想，我们那个投资模拟到期末上台报告，这算是一种公开处刑吗？
以前是在工厂，因为台湾的公司全部开工厂。
还有黄金是什么？就是选礼拜九了，什么外汇市场、黄金市场必选的。
Okay, good morning. Today we are going to have a lot of information we want to discuss with our students, and let's begin with this chart. Since now we know there is a war between the Russian and Ukrainian. Okay, so let's see how the capital market react to this event. Okay, and we can see this is up to like 20th. Actually, didn't. If you take a look at the recent development, probably for example, like Bitcoin has been rising substantially for the last few days, and we all know the Treasury, U.S. Treasury bond price rising significantly, so causing the interest rate down, right? Because there's a reverse relation. When the price up, the yield will be down. And we can see the reason here. You know, why the U.S. Treasury bond pricing up? It's very easy to understand, right? That's why. Why the U.S. dollar and the U.S. bond price up and recently? What's the reason? Yeah. Yeah, that's because the U.S. currency is become the hedging currency, especially during the crisis. And we also see that like the Swiss franc also increase. And lost metal increase, gold increase, platinum increase. Definitely the oil also increase. If we take a look at the recent oil price, is rising even higher. Okay. And the stock price down, but we also can see the price down not as serious as we originally expected. Okay, the reason is, as I mentioned last time, if we take a look over past 50 years, so far only two wars causing the stock price down for more than 6 months. One is during 1970 because the Israel has a war against the Arab nations and causing the oil crisis, petroleum crisis during that time. The second would be the after 9/11, there was the war between U.S. and Iraq, right? And they also causing the stock price down substantially. But for this war, Ukrainian and Russia, the war, I personally, I think it's going to be finished soon. But when I say finished soon, that means still have the fighting, but the war already ended. Why I'm saying that? Because you can see now, I think the U.S. got the most benefit. Why should I say that? Because due to this event, they formed the allies. And European nation in the past, they kind of have some problem with the U.S., but at this event, they become united together. And we are going to see the Germany, your nation, they are going to announce they will have their national defense budget over 2%. Because the two nations were so worrisome to the Western nation. Why is Japan? Why is Germany? Because this two nations, once they decide to enhance their national defense, they will be quite influential in the world. Because these two nations, they participate in World War I, World War II. Okay, and also we can see I shouldn't say that. I think the people like Russian people, but most of the people dislike Putin due to this event. And they even hate Putin. If you take a look, the United Nations, they had a meeting yesterday, and almost half of the delegates from all nations walked out the meeting because the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Russia was going to make a virtual speech there, and they walked out. They walked out. They didn't want to listen to the argument. So you can see. So even Russian troops, they are going to have the very, very big troops, and they are going to attack Kyiv, maybe today or yesterday, tomorrow. But even they attack, they lost already because they never surrender, and they are going to look at the U.S. occupied Afghanistan. Look at the U.S. occupied Afghanistan. If even the military they win, but they have to, because the occupation, they have to spend so much money and lost so much life, and they cannot end it. So you can see the stock market will react. The war probably is going to over, and even the war become worse, but will be isolated in the Ukrainian area. Because in this time, if the U.S. decide to step in, then the stock market will react very strongly. But since the U.S. want to limit their participation, so the war will be isolated in the Ukrainian area. We know it's safe for the Ukrainian people, but you also can see the U.S. their strategy has been quite determined. Even during the crisis, they still have the big presence in Asia rather than Europe, because they didn't want to be switched the attention from the Asian to Europe, because they found the most dangerous enemy probably China. And look, how about Taiwan? I think that Taiwan is safe. Don't worry, Taiwan is safe, especially due to this election crisis. And we know the state is very safe for the people, but I think if the similar event happen in Taiwan, on the one hand, I think the Taiwan people will become stronger, so they will become more willing to defend our nations. And the other is, I think the war will have Taiwan. And the most important, we have Taiwan's trade. That's different. The Taiwan's trade is, because my parents are from China, and they told me a long time ago, before I was born, they from China to Taiwan, they took it about 7 days in the boat, and they said almost died. You can see the Taiwan's trade is very different from the English trade. English trade is quite the wave and the situation not so volatile, but Taiwan's trade, especially winter time, is not very easy to do the military action. Probably China, if you really want to take action against Taiwan, probably in May and September is their best time, and because the condition of Taiwan's trade. Okay, now let's come back to our investment. Okay, this is I think this is very good diagram. I show you the investment decision process. Investment decision process. you can see we call it dynamic rational thinking with psychological factor. So in this process, actually we incorporate the fundamental of the investment, and we also incorporate the psychology of investment, also incorporate the currency issue. When I say currency issue, is referred to like a monetary liquidity. So, but for those specific area like psychology and also like a monetary issue, and also how to do the fundamental research analysis, I'm going to talk about maybe the following classes. Okay. First of all, you want to do the investment. No matter what, you are individual investor or you are portfolio investor. And the first of all, you have to gather the information, right? And the information is you want to understand is now is the right time to make an investment, and the industry situation is good, the macroeconomic is appropriate, the pricing level is overpricing or is okay or is underpricing. So you have to always think about these situations, okay? And also you have to think about your personal situation. Do you have sufficient amount of money to make investment? And how many cashes do you have? Do you have to borrow money or whatever, right? And then you have the first tier thinking. The first tier thinking, you have to think about, do I have the good selection of stock for me to make investment? Okay, and are they fundamentals sounds good? Okay, so this is the first tier thinking. Then you have to do the valuation, evaluate, right? And in the class, I also in your finance class, they taught you a number of valuation technique. What technique? Right? You have like net present value technique, and you have the P/E ratio technique, and you have the EBITDA multiple technique, and you have like a market ratio over book ratio technique. There are a whole bunch of valuation technique. And the purpose of using those techniques, you want to come up with like we so-called intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is the theoretical value of the company. And that's based on the cash flow forecasting. And the cash flow forecasting also based on the fundamental of the company and the industry, etc., right? And you also have to discount those cash flow into the present value because all cash flow in the future, all uncertain, right? Even like a company like Apple Computer, they produce most popular cell phone. And when they make last year, when they make their this year cash flow forecasting, they couldn't come up with the situation in Russia right now, right? Because the Apple Computer, they just announced they are going to stop all their product selling in Russia. Actually, that will cause their cash flow negatively, right? But we don't know how long they are going to last. But that's why I'm saying that the cash flow forecasting always involved with the risk. So you have to need to use the discount rate to discount all those cash flow. And this is the basic idea of the valuation. So once you got the valuation, so you found a good company, right? And we found, oh, okay, maybe we found the Netflix now is $300 US. That looks fundamental, although already make some adjustment because last quarter they announced their customer base increasing, already declining, so may have an impact on their future cash flow, but their price corrected, for more than $100, $150, maybe $200. So maybe you may think about maybe it's a good target for you to invest. So then you have to come up with what they call second tier thinking. The second tier thinking is very important for mature investor, right? What's the second tier thinking? The second tier thinking is you have to find out the relation between the intrinsic value and the the value you are seeing in the market, the real money in the market. That's called market value. So, for example, like the company, like the most famous company in Taiwan is called TSMC, like TSMC. You found it's a good company, and the valuation and the interest value, we found the interest value maybe 600 NT a share. Looks like a profit. But if you take a look at the market price, so I'm saying the 600 maybe is the interest value, theoretical value, evaluated by our model, right, our methodologies. But the market value now is about 620. So it's slightly above interest value. So now you have to think about, are you going to step in to buy the stock, or you want to wait until TSMC share pull back? Maybe pull back until 550, then you decide to step in. That's your choice. Maybe pulling back was wrong, who knows, right? Then, the reality will show you, the waiting is a good idea or not, right? Maybe 620 is, although it's above the 600 interest value we got right now. But the problem is maybe next quarter, the price may be shooting up to 700, who knows? So the second tier thinking is, you got to have your own belief and your information, and also your patience, your discipline. For some mature investor, Now let me give you, that's called stubborn investor. Now I use the term, this is term, actually I cited from Tuscolani. It's one of the European great investors in the early age time. The stubborn, in his book, he mentioned is like a mature investor. And the stubborn investor really consider about the second tier thinking. And they already want to look to buy the low price. That's called stubborn investor. The hesitant investor is like most investor. When the market was crazy, they became crazy. When the market become very fearful, they become very fearful. Okay, so those we call hesitant investor. 好，第一个叫做固执的投资人 ，stubborn， 意思说比较成熟了。hesitant 就是比较投机性的。Okay，hesitant investor. So the stubborn investor probably they were very thoughtful during stage. They really insist they want to buy at 550. I also invest at TSMC. Let me tell you, for last 1 year, if you buy TSMC in around 550, you will make money. Because for last year, the price is always between 550 to like a 650, $100 difference. So if you become very hesitant and you become very crazy, so you may buy, I knew some investor bought the TSMC at 670. So far over the 1 year, you never recover. So it's difficult. Although saying is easier than doing. I'm here. I'm a teacher. It's very easy for me to talk, right? I talk about idea, talk about issue. Yes.
It is a good time to buy TSMC stock because I know that right now the world is lack of chip, and then so because the TSMC product is cheap, especially cheap for automobile industry and electronic industry. So I think that maybe in the next 1 year, the production of TSMC will expand. So to the expect that we should buy TSMC and then expect that the stock price will raise in the next 1 year.
That's
Now it's 650.
650. Now it's 650.
Yes.
Now it's 6.
有吗？现在600有吗？
650, 630.
No, 604 now.
604.
604.
Yes, so I think.
Because for last 2 weeks, probably the share was down. You know, let me tell you, your idea is great. I found a number of the financial analysts, they talk about the issue like you. Okay, because of the war, because of the, you know, the shortage of the semiconductor is always happening. So TSMC, they also mentioned for last 2 years, their book already booked so many customers want to buy, especially those big customers like Intel, right? Like Qualcomm, like Nvidia already try to, for example, Nvidia, you know the company Nvidia, right? Nvidia also brought about $10 billion to the TSMC. Say, hey, I'm going to like put certain portion of your, you know, like a 5 or 3. Name it. 来，我的名字。2奈米、3奈米什么讲？谁名字讲？Nano。哦，台湾话我们叫3奈米、5奈米。Nano want to buy like a high-end technology process. Bring because you have to pre-book. Pre-book you have to borrow money. For the company I work with, we just small company, and we want to do the business with TSMC. And for this year, we will have to borrow about like $1 billion NT to a pre-order. So we have to give them the deposit. So yeah, the business is good, but the problem is what? The problem is expert or financial expert, they have prediction like you, but share price for last 2 weeks down from like 650 down to like 604. Why? Because the factor affect the market is not just fundamental, right? The fundamental is the story. Actually, the story always equal. When the price up, then those experts will tell you, see, right? The story like this. Let's just provide you an explanation. And now we are talking about a prediction. And the prediction, just for my idea, is we are not predicting the price. Predicting the price is difficult. We are predicting the good future or fundamental future of the company, right? So, as you mentioned, right, the relation towards there's a gap between the intrinsic value and the market price, but you have to consider this factor: psychology and the currency value. Psychology and currency value. Why this is important? What's the currency value? The currency value is what I'm saying. I was saying before. It's called liquidity. You got to have a lot of money in the market, chasing for one stock or certain stock, then the price may have the big jump. If there was only a few money or a little money in the market, then the price probably won't jump. Probably will fall, maybe. Let me give you an example, like TSMC, for last 2 weeks. Although fundamental is good as you expected, because fundamental won't be changed just in 1 day, right? They will last for long term unless your prediction was wrong. Otherwise, they will not last for at least maybe 1 quarter or 2 quarters. But for last 2 weeks, because of the war between Russia and Iraq, so the world stock market dropped. The world stock market dropped. You know what are the percentage of the foreign investors holding the TSMC? 80%. 88% of investors holding the TSMC. So TSMC actually is not a Taiwanese company, actually is the international company. Because 80% of these shareholders are foreigner, like a pension fund or endowment fund or university or like a hedge fund, etc. Or insurance company. So for last 2 weeks, because the war situation, so the international capital market down. So for those foreign shareholders, they will, just right away reduce their exposure in the Taiwan market. So for last 2 weeks, although the Taiwan fundamental was good, but how much money flew from Taiwan to overseas? I think almost like 200 billion NT dollars. And Taiwan is very stable. We didn't involve in the war, but the money still flew out because that's their judgment, especially hedging fund. If they found the situation changes, they will pull out the market right away. And now they'll gradually come back. And so that's one reason. It's because and for those foreign fund, they're pulling back from the blue chip stock like TSMC is very easy because the TSMC their liquidity was very good. So they want to sell the TSMC, it's very easy to get the money. If you for like a small stock, you want to sell during the bear market, you want to sell the stock, it's very, very difficult because the liquidity was very bad. Understand? 所以在市场不好的时候，其实外资它都先抽了的。它先抽的话，其实最近受伤的都是这种台积电这种股票，因为它的流动性比较高，它会先买。Okay, so I'm just tell you the simple thing when you talk about the stock market is actually it's difficult. As I told you, sometimes I also suffer. This time I also suffer too. And so you have to make judgment of the current trend and make a clear investment plan and invest on the tolerable condition and patient and strict self-discipline. Patient and strict discipline is very important, especially during the difficult time. Let me tell you, every year, 80% of the time, the share price will drop, especially for small stock, small cap stock. 80% of the time was dropping. So, when 80% time was dropping, you have a temptation to sell out all your stock. So at that time, the patient and you really believe your fundamental, really believe your own prediction. That's very important. Otherwise, you are going to sell more stock. For over the last month, it's very difficult because one day drop, one day up, one day drop, one day up. If you become panic, you will lose all your monies, right? Because when you see the price drop today, you sell your stock. But next day, up, then you buy stock, then it drop. You are going to lose all your money. That's real situations. Especially if you borrowing money, if you have the margin trading, actually your psychology will become very weak. Because if you doing the margin trading, if the share price drop more than 25%, you are going to ready to receive the margin call. So you will sell stock before you receive the margin call. But normally, once you sell stock, the price will up. So many situations happen. 知道吗？所以不要做融资做股票。老师也做过融资的，不好，所以不能牵着做。好，当老师的人就知道多尝试啊，但是他痛苦的尝试。当你跌了25%，现在跌25%很容易，尤其那种小型股25%很容易，跌了25%以后你一定会卖，你一卖厂一卖以后马上涨，很痛苦。Okay, this is very good. The diagram show you the decision process. Okay, so now I'm going to go quickly, and let's talk about all those things you like. And the stock market movement are based on the fund investors. So we actually the stock price reflect in the future. Reflect in the future. Normally reflect like 6 or 12 months. It's just normally. We don't know. Sometimes it's 1 quarter. So the stock reflect story, reflect dream, even reflect rumor. even reflect rumor. And if the story became reality, I remember I purchased one stock, and that stock is producing like a game. It's a game. This company, I'm talking about a story about like 5 years ago. This company, they are not internet game. They are just like a physical location. They have the game machine, and it's like a square box. So they place those machines maybe in the Disney World or maybe in like a amusement park, and even maybe in front of the Costco, say so. So their EPS was just making $2 per share, but they have provides good story to the capital market. They say, hey, we are successful in Taiwan, and we are going to recopy our successful story to China. China is a big market, right? We are going to produce success story to Southeastern Asian country and around the world. So the story, they provide story, and the analysts also try to stimulate the story. So investors kind of believe the story. So the share price dropped from like $80 to $500, just in 1 quarter. So let me tell you, for the small cap stock, normally they only rising price in very short period of time, like just 2 months or 1 week, even just 1 month. That's it. Then they will gradually decline. So they're up. Alright, let me use the measure. 小型股你要注意哦，小型股哦，都是短期之内就可以涨完，你要等很久，等到时候涨完了，然后你不要期待下一波，大部分都是没有下一波。So they drop up $580. Then starting drop for 1 year, drop to 250. But a lot of people, they purchase in 500, purchase at the price of the 400, so they lost money. Most investors lost money. Because when the share price from 60 to 500, only those, I should say the big guy, 就是他们股市大户, they try to manipulate this stock. So they purchase. And ordinary investor will just watch it. But once the price reach like 300, then they will jump in to buy. Then they earn the money, but they might buy more stock. They jump to up 500, and the analyst may tell you, okay, this company is going to be 1,000. So a lot of people purchase at the 500, then decline. So most of people lost money. Only those big guys at the time, because they speculate in the stock. But let me tell you, the dream they provided 5 years ago is not a rumor, really come true now. Now their product sold around the world, and their EPS is not as good as originally expected. Now their EPS is about, I think that like $7 or $8 per share. It's still good. But now their share price jump into 100. When the dream come true, share price drops to 100. So got to remember, the share price normally reflect the futures. When the futures become reality, the share price drops. A loss of trend lasts for a longer time than expected. After a strong and long bull market, index had a huge trend. This is talk about U.S. market. The U.S. market has been more than 10 years ready. However, if more people have faith that the market will move upward, the less likely this trend will continue. Invest in the bull market will present a false appearance of a crack of bad news. The potential crack will let the stock market incline in response to wrong judgment on part of which most investors. When the market reaches its highest point, it's not good news. That this is key. It's not good news. Rather, it's that this news will not be good. Okay. So when the share price really or market reach the highest point, even there's more news, more good news, but there's not. Won't affect the market, then the price, the stock market will still drop. There will be some fake bear market signal. The only real bear market appear. Generally, investors find that once the stock price of the stock market as a whole appear bullish, it's a revelation of either good or good event in the race, not accurate. Anybody has a problem with those statements? Those statements are experience statements. But they are the most difficult. Although those investor tycoon or those investor master, those good stock scholar, those best-selling book, they talk about all those experience points. But the problem is we don't know whether now is the highest point or not. Right? Like over the last 5 years, another economist, another of the fund manager always talk about the US market already in peak. It's going to fall. You are going to lose all your money. Right? Last week, one of very famous US hedging fund investor told you that US stock are going to drop more than 40% in 6 months. Every year they have all these articles. Maybe sometimes they become reality. Sometimes they may wrong. So that's why independent thinking is very important. You want to really become a successful investor. I'm not talking about a great investor because I don't see any great investor. Like Warren Buffett is considered a great investor, but I would say his luck is very. And also he started investing at the very stage, and he purchased the insurance company in 1970s. You know, what's the advantage for buying the insurance company? Because the insurance company has what? Has a lot of cash. They have to buy the share, they have to buy the bond. And in 1960 and 70, up to now, the US, their industry is growing. Although sometimes step back, it's growing. You can see that in 1970, the Dow Jones is even like just 500 points, but now it's already almost 40,000 points. So you can see, especially he's a long-term investor, so he keep long-term, he keep waiting. How come he can keep waiting? Because he has a lot of cash in the insurance company, in his pocket. So he can wait. And now he becomes very successful. Okay. So we shouldn't say great investor, because sometimes you say someone is a great investor, next year he will become a wealthy investor. Right? You can see a lot of, like Casey Wood, right? Casey Wood, for last few years, is very famous. She is the investment community say that Casey Wood you heard about this lady, like Casey Wood. Casey Wood for last 2 or 3 years, her fund, has achieved, I think we would say the more than 200% return. Very amazing. But last year and this year so far, probably dropped more than 80%. And so for last 2 years, she was a hero, but now she became like, because a lot of people withdraw their fund from the asset management companies. But I also invest for fund, but I'm still in there. Because this lady, he said, I'm already invested in like a disruptive innovation company, and she said, And I just watched her news yesterday, and she's still very optimistic. I don't know is it really her true thinking or not. She mentioned about, oh man, now is a good time to buy my share, to buy my index, buy my certificate, because she owns like ARKK, ARKG. And she said, now is the right time, because if you buy at this price, although it's low, but you take a look at the return in the 5 years later, the IRR is going to be 22%. This guy is really, she's older than me. She's 65 years old, but she can talk, she can communicate, and she can talk about story. And so you see, some people still believe her, and she can, she'll be in the market. No problem. Sign of overselling. And so how to judge stock market? What's the sign for overselling, right? So we really want to know the market is on the peak or on the down, right? Bottom. What's the sign? We can provide you some signs, but there's no guarantee. Okay? This sign not provided by me. This sign is provided by investor master, like a Howard Mark, like a Peter Lynch, like Warren Buffett. I just provide you their thought, but no guarantee, because the investment is really is case by case. So here we provide you sign of overselling, sign of overbuying. The sign of overselling, that means probably the price is already down. But how do people sell? So if small transaction, then price up. Sometimes it's probably the sign of overselling. Because even by small amount, the price will up. That probably is the sign of the overselling. How about sign of overbuying? Sign of overbuying is a lot of the hesitant investors still buying. The price keep dropping. The huge amount of transaction, but the price is still dropping. Then there's a bad sign. This probably is the sign of overbuying. Understand? So here I provide you some, like an answer here. They talk about forecasting. They mean forecasting is really difficult, very difficult. Now my investment strategy is I take a look at long-term investor, long-term fundamental, but sometimes wrong because fundamental may be changing. But I will go step by step. In Chinese we call 周永康，中文这个叫做一步一步走。这以前有没有比较好的名词？以前那个邓小平讲过，邓小平是我很尊敬的一个中国的政治人物，叫什么？涂平哦，有没有想？他要多读历史，按部就班，那听起来太学术性了，太学术因为听不下去了。他讲那种比较社会性的，因为你看一下这一次那个乌克兰总统那个讲话，就是难怪当过演员厉害，对不对？他今天拜登要讲说，今天拜登要最近这个时候正在对国会讲话，就是他们 State of Union， 就是讲他们国之这个，然后那个乌克兰总统马上讲说，你这次拜托你讲点有用的好不好？还没讲到这个方法，讲点有用。No, I'm talking about at this time, the U.S. President or Joe Biden is going to make a speech to the State of Union, right? To the Congress now at this time. 10 o'clock. And I'm the Ukrainian president just posted one